City Secretary Rebecca Huerta, would you call the roll? Oh, she's not there.
I'm right here, no worries. Chairman Everett Roy,
Present?
board members Roland Barrera,
Here.
Rudy Garza,
Here.
Paulette Guajardo. Ms. Guajardo?
She's on mute.
I know she's here, but I
She's on
can't
mute.
hear her. Are you unmuted, Paulette? No? Okay, we'll go back a little bit. Gil Hernandez,
Here.
Michael Hunter,
Here.
Susan Hutchison,
Here.
Ben Molina,
Present.
Joe McComb, James Sedgwick. Mr. Sedgwick? No? Absent?
I'm present, Rebecca.
Oh,
Sorry
good.
about that.
Okay, thank you. Greg Smith?
Here.
Carolyn Vaughn?
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum present to conduct the meeting.
Okay. Next, we have public comment. Is there any public comment written notice?
No, sir, no public comment was received.
Okay. Seeing that there's no public comment, I would like to go to the minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Okay, for some reason, we just went down. Are we still up?
We can hear you.
Okay, well, I'll keep going. Next, we have the financial report.
Ms. Hilbert? Can you turn your mic on? No, you are down.
Okay, I think we're up. We're pulling the presentation up right now. Okay, go ahead, next slide. Okay, so our financial position as of April 30th, 2020, we have the beginning fund balance for fiscal year 2020 at 4.8 million. Revenues to date were 1.6 million. Our expenditures to date were 623,000, leaving us an ending fund balance as of April 30th of 5.9 million. Now, of that 5.9 million, we do have existing commitments of 4.8 million, leaving us with a balance available for commitments of a little over $1 million. That concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions? Seeing that there's no questions, there is no action required for this item. So next, I'd like to go into our executive session item. The board will go into executive session on item 3 per Texas Government Code section 551.071 and 551.087, and we will return.
for the Downtown Management District. The next item that we're presenting is the approval of the First Amendment for the People Street project, which is known as the Montgomery Ward Building at 541 North Chaparral Street, where the developer is requesting a 12-month extension from August 28th of 2020 to August 31st of 2021. A few items that have kind of come up in this project that are the main issues for this delay has been the finalization of the design plans, which those are needed for the federal state historic tax credits. And the second issue that came up was finding a qualified contractor, given the complicated design elements and the structural deficiencies within the building, which they have selected a contractor at this point. And then more recently would be the lender has tightened up their requirements and has asked for additional documents from the developer in order to secure the loan. And this is from the lender, this is directly related to the tightening of the credit and liquidity markets directly affected by the economic effects of COVID-19. I do want to point out, though, that the developer has invested over $500,000 of this $4.3 million project. With that, the developer has installed a new roof, which helps stabilize a good portion of the building, removed the debris, remediated asbestos, finalized engineering reports, structural foundation, soil testing, elevator, stairwell tests. The design plans have been finalized. Secured a partnership with the Art Center for the art studios on the second floor. Submitted and approved for Part 1 of the federal and state historic tax credits. Submitted for Part 2 and Part A of the federal and state historic tax credits. They're still awaiting approval on that. Secured their historic tax credit investors. With the construction firm has been selected and has finalized the first floor commissary kitchen plans. And moving forward, the developer still needs to get approval from the Corpus Christi Housing Finance Corporation, which my understanding that's going to be brought up next month. The HFC needs to approve design plans and provide an extension. This is per the agreement with the HFC. Next, the developer expects to get Part 2 and Part A of the federal state historic tax credits. At that point, with approval of Tirz number 3 board, approval of the Corpus Christi Housing Finance Corporation, and approval of the federal and state historic tax credits, then the lender will finalize and the developer will be able to secure the loan at that point. And after securing of the loan, the developer will move to construction. I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Board member, are there any questions?
I've got a question.
Seeing that there are no questions. I'm sorry, is there a question?
Rudy has a question.
Okay. Seeing that there are no questions,
Chairman Roy,
I'll
I do have
entertain a
question.
motion to approve.
Chairman Roy, I've got a question.
Okay, there is a question.
Sorry, I was trying to get in, but I couldn't get in here. I've just got some big concerns over this project, and when I look at the summary, the following improvements,
We can't hear him.
Can't hear him.
can you hear me?
If we could turn the camera up.
I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do now at this point. Continue or stop?
Can we hear? Can
Can't
you hear
hear him
Mr.
still.
Roy? Yes?
Can't hear him.
You can't hear or you can?
Cannot.
Oh. Should we
I can hear
recess
you
for a
and
little
not
bit?
him.
Huh?
Oh, we can hear him. Can you like yell?
We hear him mumbling.
Hey, for me, I thought that was yelling, but okay. I just have some concerns about the list of improvements at this point. I mean, with all the issues and the changes in society related to COVID-19, I mean, we're going to ask for some monies from the Housing Corporation for 8 apartment units. They're talking about trying to fill in 14 art studios. They're talking about some retail space, some commercial space. I mean, I just don't see a demand increasing for commercial space, whether it be office space or retail. And so again, I just have some real concerns about us approving a project that might not be viable, no matter how much money we put into it, unless it's changed to accommodate today's needs or the future's needs versus what may have been needed in the past, or what may have worked in the past. Thank you.
That's a really good point, Councilman. So the developer has kind of pivoted on the first floor with regarding the retail space. So he has finalized plans for a commissary kitchen, which means so food trucks, caterers, vendors, people like that can rent out this space. What's unknown in the future is, what's the future of restaurants and close gatherings? We don't know, but it would be available for private gatherings or chef's table type of atmosphere and that sort of thing. So as we see, the restaurant industry change, maybe more food trucks or more mobile type of settings, outdoor settings, this would be a good place for those type of vendors and mobile food trucks to prepare their items in a safe kitchen, which is limited already in the city. So this provides a venue for that. Given the art studios, he's indicated that there's still a strong need for, artists. Those studios will be walled off and they'll have their individual units on the second floor. And then the 8 apartment units, there's still a wait list for, this is the same developer as who did the Nueces Lofts. He still owns the Nueces Lofts. There's a wait list there. We've seen that leasing has significantly increased at the Cosmopolitan. We did receive a report from them at our merchant meeting a week ago. Leasing did fall off during April, which was expected, and into May, but it quickly ramped back up, and they have a wait list on a couple of their units already. So it's definitely a dynamic environment, but he's trying to change it accordingly with what he can see on the horizon.
Are there any other questions? Any other questions? Seeing that there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval. It's rolling.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have a presentation of the proposed FY 2021 Reinvestment Zone budget.
Good morning, board members. Eddie Houlihan with the Office of Management and Budget. The presentation, there's no action required today. It's the presentation.
Hey, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Better.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Eddie Houlihan with the Office of Management and Budget. There's no action required on this item today. It's the proposed budget for the Reinvestment Zone number 3, which was created in 2009. In this area, the base property value is a little over $310 million. The fiscal year 20, the values were $439.5 million, and the preliminary 2021 fiscal year value is $470.6 million, an increase of $31.1 million, or 7.1%. We will expect to get the final values, certified values, on or before July the 25th. So the revenue slide here, so that property, those property values generate, total revenues of $1,983,228. That includes the contribution from the city, Delmore, and county, the participating agencies. In the looking at the expenditures, the downtown living initiative is budgeted in 2021 for $2,015,000. That is for the 600 building, and all other items have a PO in place for them that were budgeted this fiscal year. Project-specific development tax reimbursement items of $385,000. We have the next page has some detail on what those exactly are. Downtown vacant building initiative to pay some overtime to our code enforcement department to enforce the vacant building ordinance of $50,000. Parking study and development to replace the parking meters of $100,000. A traffic pattern analysis of $350,000. Some streetscape and safety improvements, which we also have the three items that make that up of $135,174. In the DM agreement, this is carried forward from this fiscal year. It's to be determined for 2021, but the current amount of that agreement is $510,000. And a small amount for any administrative of $2,000. And then any general fund support of $126,924, bringing total expenditures to $3,674,000, and we expect to end the fiscal year with a fund balance of $3,331,000. The next slide has a little bit of detail on some of those initiatives, as I mentioned. Yes.
So you're budgeting a shortfall and eating up your reserves. It appears to me you're eating up.
You're getting quiet, Eddie.
Huh? I mean, my question is, you're budgeting a deficit. You're drawing down your fund balance by almost $3 million. If you're starting out with $7 million and you're ending up with $3 million.
We can't hear you.
Mayor, we can't hear you.
Well, the program's low bidder, I guess. I don't know. What is this, Netflix? What is this we are on? WebEx. That's what you get with a low bidder, I guess. I don't know. Hold on, I got a timeout. They can hear Rudy, they can't hear me. That maybe the mayor's phone's.
We can hear
Couldn't
you
hear
now.
Rudy either.
You're loud and clear.
Yeah, selective failure on the PA system.
They said I was mumbling, I don't know.
Okay, are there any questions on the budget?
You want to repeat?
But unless I'm missing something, I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Or unless I'm hearing something, you've got a fund balance at the beginning of $5 million. You're going to take in almost $2 million, gives you total funds available at $7 million. And you're going to end the year with a $3 million balance. So you're eating up $4 million. And what have we got for our $4 million?
You're correct, Mayor, that the expenditures are, we don't know exactly when the large amount there, the $2,015,000, maybe somebody from the DMD might have a better, of when that's the total committed amount. We don't know exactly what year that will be paid out.
So this is the 2 million's actually split. It's now changed where I think we split it over 3 fiscal years. So this 2 million is not all at once. And that 300, so the Wisnia development, that's not all at one time. I think that the city likes to take a conservative approach and go ahead and kind of designate those funds as committed, so that we make decisions kind of knowing what we've already committed to, and just don't go start writing checks beyond what we have in fund balance. So, I mean, that's okay. I get that's okay. But the 385 also is a cash in, cash out. So the 385 only gets paid when people pay their taxes, and we pay a portion of their taxes back to them. So hopefully, Mayor, that addresses your concerns on that subject.
Yeah, Mayor, the $2 million there, the Downtown Living Initiative, that's the prior approved payment for the 600 building. And so that's your analysis is accurate, where we're drawing down fund balance, we're bringing in less revenue than what we're going to spend, and that's by prior approved project approvals, to include a big one was the 600 building. That was an over $3 million incentive.
But those funds won't be allocated within 1 year. I believe that will be over a 3-year period.
That's
Yes,
correct.
sir.
Well, if the 2 million's not accurate for 2021, we should get a new number then to put what the right amount is for
Come for
2021.
the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, we put the total amount of the,
Okay, we need
Of
to
the commitment.
revise that 2 million number, I'm sorry, by the time this is approved by the board then.
I've got a comment whenever,
Okay.
Can I make one comment, sir?
sure.
Mr. Mayor, behind tab number 2 under the financial report, there is a report that says contracts and commitments, and that one is cumulative and all-encompassing of all of the incentives that have been awarded to date. And so, and it is over not just one year, it's over several years. And so that bottom, on the very bottom right-hand corner, it says 4,880,582 is what is left to be paid out of the of our development project totals. So that's just for your information. It's just a cumulative spreadsheet of all of our incentives to date.
Well, I mean, what, out of the 2,015,000 for the 600 building, have they even started anything on that building yet?
Sure. So we have them working on submitting some design plans. I believe I copied you on an email where, due to the changing economic situation, they are asking for us, the city of Corpus Christi, to indicate support for a federal program that would increase the historic tax credit payout at the federal level. And so I'm hopeful that we can get some support for that project. And again, I completely understand. I certainly want them to just hurry up and get it done. But the way that projects like this go, and especially in a market and a community like ours, our redevelopment efforts are very much hinged upon a developer's ability to do a job in our city. And the Cosmopolitan, those guys, I mean, somebody went bankrupt, people got out with some bumps. And so we really, in my professional opinion, it's very important that the Wisnia project succeed, and that we provide as much support for them as possible. I hope that message was clear. So they're still working on it. They haven't lost motivation, even though, they're based in New Orleans. It was one of the hardest hit cities by COVID. There's a lot kind of creating some challenges here, but they have not lost motivation, and I think that's really the key.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Yeah, go ahead, Rudy.
Okay, first off, the parking study and development, the $100,000 we're spending there. I thought we had done a parking study a little while back. Before, I think we should budget more dollars. We need to find out what the results were. I remember you did a presentation on the study, but I just want to know whether we've taken any actions or made any recommendations based on the last parking study that we did about 3 or 4 years ago. And then define development. Are we going to give people money to improve their dirt parking lots? I mean, what's the idea? Or what are we going to do in terms of development?
I can take this, or if anybody, if Constance, Heather, if you guys are, you guys okay with me answering this question?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, so this is actually $100,000 for implementation of the parking study findings. So from that parking study, we came out with an implementation plan. Things have been slow moving, but this 100,000 actually is slated for the purchase of parking meters, because our parking meter system is very antiquated to the degree that they've actually stopped making the types of meters that we utilize. So there is a capital expenditure that will need to be made. The police department has been managing kind of that effort because parking enforcement does fall under PD. But I think that, you know, it's difficult to make this a priority item. So this was budgeted in last fiscal year and has been rolled to the next fiscal year because essentially it just has not yet been completed. This is not for a new study. This is for new parking meters.
Well, in the previous meeting that we had on parking, I remember asking for an analysis of what kind of revenue we were getting from the parking meters and what kind of investment we had made and what investment we were looking to make in the future. But I'd like to see an analysis before we continue to add money to the parking meters if we're just going to be putting them out there and we're not, the revenue's not matching anything of what we're investing in, other than getting the circulation or the rotation you want, which, I mean, I don't see an issue right now in terms of demand for parking. I'd still like to see something on paper. I know the last study that we were going to invest all these dollars in parking meters and parking enforcement and everything else was probably back in Joe Adami's tenure as mayor. And so I inherited a little bit of that when I first came in. But I haven't seen anything that says that any of the things that we've done have resulted in any additional revenue.
Yes, sir. I'll defer a little bit back to the city on that. It wasn't a subject that I spent a lot of time analyzing numbers with when I was the business liaison. And I think that it's just a matter of updating some of those numbers and reporting them back. Ultimately, that parking meter expenditure will be something that goes to council. And so I think that that's an analysis that will have to be done before these dollars are expended.
Okay, well, before we adopt the budget, if we could just get something that might give us a little bit of insight as what we're doing, what direction we're headed in.
Yeah, we'll get you that, Councilman Garza.
And then the last question I have is related to traffic pattern analysis. We're looking at spending $350,000. I think it's what I'm reading. The only question there is that a worthwhile activity for us to do? We don't have a whole lot of traffic downtown, and it's not just related to COVID-19, but we've gotten some momentum and we've fallen back a little bit, but should that be something that the bulk of the dollars should be spent when we actually take the bridge down? Because the traffic patterns, in my opinion, of traffic flows are going to change when that bridge comes down. Should we actually hold back some money? I know we thought maybe by this point we were going to be at a point where the bridge was going to start be taken down, but with the delays on the bridge, is the timing on the traffic pattern analysis still proper?
Yes, sir. So I think that this is another item where we might do well to update the title of it, because this is not conducting a new traffic pattern analysis. This is actually implementing some of the short-term projects that were identified as just issues that people had with movement in the downtown area. The majority of these funds are for the two-way conversion of the long block segments between water and shoreline. And that is an area where we regularly see people driving the wrong way. So creating that excess and making it so people can actually get around and don't get completely confused by our city's one-way pattern system is the majority of that funds. And then the other thing that we identified there was that the bluff, the uptown to downtown bluff has actually been subsiding. If you take these stairs down in front of the fountain, you can see it on the steps. And so at some point, we are going to need to do an analysis of the condition of that facility or that structure, because, I mean, it's an important bluff, and there's a lot of very large buildings on top of it. So trying to understand what capital improvements or repairs need to be made. It's a natural bluff. I understand the first streets were built on it in the 40s, and I think we've literally just been patching that road work over for since they were originally constructed. So this is more implementation versus analysis for some kind of short-term, high-importance projects.
So you're thinking that the infrastructure improvements that need to be made on the roadways and on Upper Broadway or on the bluff would be part of a traffic pattern analysis? That I don't follow you there.
No, sir. So the traffic pattern analysis that we conducted, which was where this line item was originally created, identified that as a project we needed to pursue. We needed to plan. So this says traffic pattern analysis, but it may behoove us to update this title to traffic pattern analysis and implementation, because we are actually trying to fix the problems that were identified in the analysis.
I agree. I think that on both of those points, I don't know what it takes for us to be able to update the expenditure, but I think that we have the ability to ask questions and kind of induce what this is used for, but I think it's kind of misleading to the public. So is there any way that we could go back in and maybe define those expenditures a little bit better?
Yes, sir, we can do that.
Thank you.
I got a question.
Yes.
Ms. Barrera, you just mentioned that one of the problems was that the bluff is sinking and we want to look and see what's happening there.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir?
Yes, sir.
So on the one hand, the bluff is sinking, but we're wanting to do a remodel of the 600 building that sits on the bluff? Are people going to collapse and have a disaster on our hands if we renovate that and make it apartments and all of a sudden the bluff collapses?
Well, there are certainly a lot of challenges that come along with continuing to maintain a historic downtown. These are the only components, really. These are two components of our downtown that really help define the character of Corpus Christi. So, yes is the short answer to your question. I think that there's more than the 600 building that depends on this structure remaining stabilized, and so these are all problems we will have to solve, and I will be having to solve probably for the rest of my life. So, yes, sir.
Well, if the bluff is sinking, I think we ought to try to solve that problem. I mean, you got the old HEB building being renovated down the road that's right there on the bluff. And you got the Wells Fargo building and then the 600 building.
I live in the Atlantic Lofts. That's on the bluff.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like, it's just, I mean, it's been a long time since buildings were put on top of there, and I think that this structure has never been analyzed, and so it's time for us to do that. And so that's what we need to do.
Alyssa, just so we're clear, what engineer is confirming that the bluff is sinking? Is that just is that a random statement, or is that factual?
Well, I will say that is something that I would need to do some more research to find out the exact source of it. If you go and walk along the balustrade, you will notice some variations in the ground. So there's definitely some movement, but I believe that the intention here is to actually get an engineer to look at that and find out if there is an issue, because it's certainly not something we want to ignore and then find out 20 years down the line that we should have looked at this 20 years ago.
Yeah, well, we got to be careful on assertions if they're not valid.
Yeah.
We don't know if the bluff's sinking then, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think we got to be careful with that terminology. I mean, I believe settlement, there could be, but you're right. We don't want to all of a sudden have a mass hysteria with somebody thinking that the bluff is sinking. But I definitely think that warrants looking at analyzing that and making sure that we're not just ignoring some of the things that we're seeing. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I had just a follow up on Rudy's question. I had really the same question on the $350,000, but based on, number one, I do feel with regard to the with regard to the parking meters, as somebody, and I know Rudy's downtown, he actually lives down here, and I work down here, and there's always people from out of town, even local people that are trying to figure out how to work the thing. And I mean, I have the app, so there needs to be some more clarification, and I'm sure when we come back from this, as the mayor said, we'll survive, we'll get through this. When we have activities like Dia de los Muertos, when, Buccaneer Days, there, or whatever it is, Dia de los Muertos, St. Patrick's Day, there's always just a ton of parking issues and there's a lot of confusion. So I think it's important that we prepare for those higher volume events. And, and Alyssa, does this extend also out? I mean, these funds to like the water's edge, because answer that question first.
Essentially, yes, the reinvestment zone extends the entire way down to Morgan, actually.
Because, Peter, this Stay Fit Fund thing has been a huge hit. And I could tell you that parking lot next to the pavilion is always full. If you're not here by 9 o'clock, then you're going to have to park further away, which you got to exercise anyway. So that's a good thing. But, I think the idea of, right now we put in, it's laborious for us to have, Public Works put out cones and the police officers to watch to set up at the lights, because I mean there's a ton of people walking and riding bikes from that Cole Park all the way to obviously the waters to I guess it's Cooper's Alley, or maybe a little bit further beyond. So just something to consider for the future, because that space is utilized quite heavily. I mean, there's a lot of foot traffic and, anyway, so just something to consider in the future. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions related to the budget?
This is Greg. I've got a comment more so than a question.
Okay.
But as I'm looking at this budget, we have quite a bit in operating expenses and in short-term capital, like the traffic study and those kind of things. And you start with the DMV reimbursement at $500,000, and paying the city for their admin costs, $126,000. You start totaling all those up. And we look at our long-term commitments, and we've got the sheet that shows, we got $13 million in the future. But it doesn't take any consideration in for these kind of costs, these ongoing costs that we'll have year in and year out. And as I look at it, I'm a little bit concerned about our ability to fund the major long-term projects with it. I'd like to see a little bit more on the pro formas or the spreadsheets, putting monies in for future operating expenses and short-term expenses that are consistent with our past practice, because I think it's a rosier picture than what we actually have on there. That if we're spending $300,000 or $400,000 for traffic studies and this kind of stuff, that it hurts our ability to fund the longer projects. And one last. I agree with City Manager Zanoni. We've got to be careful in what we say, that we've got some settlement around City Hall. You can look at the building itself. That doesn't mean there's any foundation issues at all with it. Those big buildings sitting on their bluff, I know Frost Building, that their piers are down go down 100 feet or whatever. So we may have some street settlement on there, but that doesn't mean at all that we have building settlement. And I haven't seen any sign of it in my walks, not that I'm a professional, but I think we need to be very cautious in what we say in a public setting about something we may not have that much knowledge about. So that's it.
Everett, this is Commissioner Vaughn. I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I understand what Alyssa's trying to say. She just wants us to be proactive because the bluff is old. And we have a tendency in this city to just let things dissolve and fall apart before we maintain them. Those things are changing, and I think she's just saying, let's be proactive, let's take a look at it. And I support her in that.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, this is for discussion only. There's no action. With that, I'd like to move to identify any future agenda items. Are there any future agenda items? All right. Seeing that there's no future agenda items, I would like to thank everyone, first of all, for your participation today. And, let's continue to go out and be safe. But seeing that there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.